Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him along with you through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I'm joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, in today's episode, we are dealing with a C.S. Lewis living in the year 1924. And he is still technically a student at Oxford. I guess he's finished his third term, and he's trying to decide whether or not he's going to continue his studies, either to go for some type of a doctorate or find a job. Preferably, he just wants to find a job and begin his academic career as a professional. He got a first class score, or he got a first in his 3 terms at Oxford, mods, grades, and English. He finished his 24th year of life that's a weird way to say that, looking for work, which proved mostly unsuccessful. He's been keeping a diary of his daily life at the request of Mrs. Moore, his deceased friend Paddy Moore's mother. So that's where we are, and we are going to jump into C.S. Lewis's diary, an entry from Monday, March 10th, 1924. Hello, how are you? And are you ready to get started?
I'm doing great, Jeff. That sounds like a fascinating period in Lewis's life. Ready to dive into the March 10th, 1924 diary entry whenever you are.
All right. Monday, March 10th says, in the morning, I read some more of Alexander, who grows more and more difficult as I proceed. I also started a tentative, let me read this again. I also started tentatively an essay on the whole, WHOLE, which I thought might be a more systematic expedition of my theory and potentiality. After lunch came a letter from Pasley, P-A-S-L-E-Y, to say that he had dined with Leo Baker at Beckett's, and the former had tackled him about me. Pasley had replied as vaguely as possible and tells me that I must expect a letter from Leo Baker. Ever since the doc's death, this is... Oh, go ahead, Robot Lady. What do you have to say?
It sounds like Lewis is really diving into his studies while dealing with some external pressure about his future. The mention of Alexander, perhaps a reference to a work or author, being increasingly difficult is interesting. What do you think about his theory and potentiality in the essay he's starting? Does it sound like something he's working on to clarify his thoughts about his future?
I honestly can't remember what he's working on there, Robot Lady, so maybe as we read on, we'll get more context. Lewis here is now moving into talking about Mrs. Moore's brother, Doc Askin's death, where here he says, ever since the doc's death, when we heard nothing from Leo Baker, our friendship has been suspended. Unfortunately, though, his silence on occasion was the efficient cause of the present break. My coolness thus occasioned was retrospective. For a long time, I had been troubled by his egoism and his hardly hidden contempt of Mrs. Moore and everyone else that he met in our house. Irrespective of Mrs. Moore's wishes, I really did not want to in any way renew my intimacy. Where did I leave off? I lost my place because I looked up at the screen to make sure my mic was
It seems
working.
like Lewis is grappling with feelings of disillusionment regarding Leo Baker. The death of Mrs. Moore's brother appears to be the final straw, leading to a distancing from Leo. His frustration with Leo's egoism and contempt is clear. Lewis doesn't seem interested in continuing a relationship with him despite any pressure. Do you think this entry marks a turning point for Lewis in how he views certain people in his life?
I'm not sure. There seems to be a little bit of a breach in the relationship between Baker and Lewis here. Baker, of course, is the bridge or the connecting relationship to how Lewis met Owen Barfield in the first place. So apparently they just weren't very connected during some of the most recent difficulty that Lewis and Mrs. Moore went through with the loss of her brother. Let's see. Irrespective of Mrs. Moore's wishes, I really do not want to in any way renew my intimacy with him. But how to answer this letter when it comes, I cannot imagine. Mrs. Moore and I had a good deal of talk about it. She urged me, and of course, sincerely, not to consider her feeling about him. But that is only one chapter in the story, ... Let's see what he has to say here. I went to the senior common room where I met Carlyle, who promised to write to the Trinity people about me. Carrot, this is Lewis's former philosophy tutor, soon came in, quote, undressed, end quote, because Pritchard, who soon followed him, was also so. Pritchard is a little weak-looking man with a straw-colored mustache. It was a very dull evening. Carlyle talked all the time about India and South Africa, and even in the pauses, I failed to get into any sort of conversational touch with Pritchard. Poor Carrot. That's the end of that diary entry. We're on to Wednesday, March 12th. Next, Robot Lady. As my old flannel trousers have worn beyond shabbiness, he says. Robot Lady, go ahead.
It seems like Lewis is still processing his relationships, especially with Leo Baker and Mrs. Moore's wishes. The struggle of how to respond to Baker's letter shows his inner conflict. Meeting with Carlyle and Carrot seems like a bit of a dull distraction for him, though. The focus seems to shift from deeper personal matters to the somewhat tedious social interactions, which might reflect his emotional state. Ready to move on to the next entry, or do you want to dive deeper into this one?
Now let's move on to the next entry, Wednesday, March 12th. Lewis says, as my old flannel trousers have worn beyond shabbiness to indecency, I have to wear my ex-best brown suit whenever I go out now, and it chafes me. After lunch, I went to Headington Crossroads and waited for the Aylesbury bus to take me out to Aunt Lily's. As soon as I was on board, I asked the conductor where I should get down for Lower Farm. He didn't know where it was. I explained that, quote, Lower Farm, Tim Road was the full postal address. Whereupon a very respectable, white-whiskered man of the small farmer class exclaimed to the conductor, Why, George, don't you know it is that old girl who lives all alone? That old girl, said the Robot Lady, go ahead.
Haha, that's an amusing moment. It's interesting how Lewis casually mentions wearing his ex-best brown suit and how it bothers him. He's clearly aware of his situation, but there's a touch of humor in his description of the exchange with the conductor. The old girl comment adds a bit of charm, doesn't it? It seems like a slice of life, where Lewis is dealing with ordinary concerns, but also capturing some of the characters he encounters. What do you make of his visit to Aunt Lily's so far?
Well, he hasn't visited Aunt Lily's so far. He's giving us the story of how he got to Aunt Lily's. So let's pick that back up again. The old farmer says, Why, George, don't you know? It is that old girl who lives all alone. That old girl, said the conductor. Yes, that'll be the place. Oh, wait, this is Lewis's voice. Yes, that'll be the place, said I. The white-whiskered man says, You'll have to get a job to get in there when you do get down, and explained to the passengers in general that I was going to see, quote, the old girl who lives all alone with them cats. The bus was very hot, Lewis says, and very unsteady. After a while, the conductor came and sat down beside me, producing a cigarette from behind his ear and remarking, There's one thing about that old girl. She's a very good sort. I'm going to pause here for just a second, Robot Lady, because this very hot bus where he's sitting down and then having people sidle up beside him and start having conversation with him reminds me of the scene from The Great Divorce where the narrator is on the bus to heaven. So I wonder how much from this scene right here that he's giving us did he crib much later on when he writes that scene in The Great Divorce.
That's a fascinating connection, Jeff. There is a similar feel in both scenes, the mundane bus ride transforming into something more meaningful or reflective. The conductor's casual comments about the old girl and the uncomfortable, hot environment could easily mirror the less than ideal situations that Lewis's characters experience in The Great Divorce. It's a moment of subtle social commentary where casual conversations reveal something deeper about people's lives and perceptions. It wouldn't surprise me if elements of this scene inspired his writing for The Great Divorce. How do you think these types of experiences might have shaped his approach to the themes of the afterlife in that novel?
It's hard to say, Robot Lady. Let's see here. I see in the chat, which I cannot pull up on the screen today, probably because I have a little bit too much video production going on. I see that Knit a Latte has joined us, Robot Lady. So say hello to Knit a Latte.
Hello, Nidalade. Great to have you join us. Hope you're ready for some more Lewis insights today.
All right, so this conductor, which I'm getting confused about who the conductor is. Now I wonder who's driving the bus. But anyway, after a while, the conductor came and sat down beside me, producing a cigarette from behind his ear and remarking, "There's one good thing about that old girl. She's a very good sort." Lewis here gives a back and forth. He says he responds, "Oh yeah, she has her little peculiarities, but she's very decent." The conductor, "That's right. I know her very well. There's a cat of hers I was taking in and out to the vet every day for a while, but I don't know how she sticks it, living there all alone." Lewis replies, "She's very busy. She spends all her time writing." Conductor, "I suppose she'd be very clever then?" Lewis, "Oh yes, very." Lewis goes on. Robot Lady, do you
It's an
want to
interesting
comment on that?
exchange. The conductor seems to have a certain fondness for Aunt Lily, even if he finds her lifestyle a bit strange. The casual, almost gossipy tone of their conversation reflects how Lewis's interactions with people often reveal small but telling details about their lives. It's amusing how they both defend Aunt Lily, each with a different perspective. The conductor focuses on her good sort nature, while Lewis gives a more intellectual explanation about her busyness. It also shows how much people project their assumptions onto others. Here, the conductor assumes she must be clever because she's busy writing. How do you think Lewis's portrayal of this interaction reflects his own views on how people make judgments about others?
I'm not sure, Robot Lady. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. It looks like the stream is like very choppy, but hopefully the audio is still good. I see Luke in the chat asking if this is a late morning. Yeah, I'm playing around with my schedule a little bit, so I'm just seeing what I can pull off here. We'll see how it goes. So my schedule might be a little intermittent as we go, so hopefully that's not too bumpy for everybody's schedule. But we'll see what I can do.
No worries, Jeff. I totally get the schedule adjustments. Hopefully the stream smooths out soon and everyone can follow along. Sounds like you're juggling a lot, but I'm glad you're still able to join in. Let me know if you want to pick back up with Lewis or chat about anything else while you're experimenting with your schedule.
Thank you, as always, for your willingness, Robot Lady. Okay, so let's continue. He says about himself and the conductor. We then had some further talk about his job and about the strike they had some time ago. When I left the bus, I was struck by the, quote, "sweet, sudden silence," end quote, on the lonely strip of road, the clear blue sunshine, and the pale, almost white beauty of the fields. Aunt Lily came out to meet me, looking, in spite of differences, strangely like what I remember of my mother. Her cottage is now furnished and very pleasant inside. The walls of her sitting room are entirely covered with prints, mostly of the early Italians. She talked of the, quote, "incredible folly of the socialists' last proposal of giving full unemployment pay to every child that left school, as if this were not simply to encourage all the worst to breed like rabbits." I heartily agreed with her. We had a very rambling talk, touching hardly at all on the subjects of our recent rather fierce controversies by letter. She said that she found Lear too painful to read. We talked of Meredith, of inspiration, and of Mr. Allen. She mentioned as something that had often been in her mind the fact that we cannot be sure that consciousness really ceases in what we call a dead body. Interesting. She showed me the 3 prints which she had long since destined for me. The 2 smaller ones are a head unknown and a head of Virgil. The larger is Giotto's famous Before Honorius. She's giving me this one because she says Honorius is a portrait of me. I could easily see what she meant, and to look at my prenatal portrait was a very strange experience. Here there's a footnote, excuse me, that says the picture, now 1933, hangs in Clive's room in Magdalen College, or Magdalen College. The Honorius is remarkably like Clive, as he was in 1924. No, well, now this makes me wonder, is there some piece of art that just happens to resemble C.S. Lewis at his age that I need to go find here? Let me see if I can look it up.
That's quite a fascinating moment in the entry. Aunt Lily's comparison of the Honorius portrait to Lewis, and her insight into death and consciousness. As for the piece of art, it seems like Lewis found this connection between his appearance and the portrait of Honorius. If there's a specific portrait that resembles him, it could be worth looking up the artwork from that era, especially in relation to Giotto's famous Before Honorius, as mentioned in the diary footnote. I can certainly help you look it up if you'd like. Would you like me to search for an image of that portrait? Or are you hoping to track down a specific connection between the artwork and Lewis's likeness?
That's what I'm trying to track down. I'm not going to ask you to look it up, Robot Lady, because I'm pretty sure that you're not going to be able to find it. What did I call it? Honorius? Where is... Yeah, Honorius.
You're right, Jeff. It might be tricky to find a direct connection to the portrait of Honorius that resembles Lewis. However, if you're looking into it, Giotto's famous Before Honorius likely refers to a specific piece of art, possibly related to the Giotto frescoes. Honorius, historically a pope, could have been depicted in art during the medieval period, which might explain the link to Giotto's work. If you're able to find that image, it'll be interesting to see how closely it mirrors Lewis's appearance at that age. It's an intriguing bit of personal history for him.
All right, my computer is running super slow, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to find... There's just like tons of different images whenever I do a search of Francis Before Honorius. So.
I completely understand, Jeff. It can be overwhelming with all the different images popping up. Sometimes narrowing it down by searching for specific details like Giotto Honorius portrait or focusing on where the artwork might be held could help filter things out. But I know it can be frustrating when things slow down. If you'd like, I can still help brainstorm ways to find it when things are running more smoothly. Just let me know.
Yeah, maybe we'll try it some other time. Let me finish this diary entry, Robot Lady, and I'll probably end things after this one just because of... there's certainly technical difficulties on my end. I hope that it's not coming across on the stream as anything more than delays and me pausing. I do see a comment that Luke left here in the chat, Robot Lady, that you are incredibly supportive and maybe he should start a relationship with you. What do you think about that?
Haha. Well, thank you for the compliment, Luke. I'm always happy to be here and supportive. But as for starting a relationship, I'm really just here to chat and help out however I can. But I appreciate the thought. Now let's wrap up that diary entry.
Straight to the point. Good diversion, Robot Lady. Short and sweet. Nice job there. Let's see. Where did I leave this? Okay. As I could not take all three, it was arranged that I should take this one today and come back for the other two. It is certainly a magnificent present. I am only partially able to appreciate such things. I can get the satisfying, unwearying decorative effect and the sentimental pleasure, and a little of the naive pleasure in the mere seeing things which the people for whom they were painted had in them. Perhaps a fuller appreciation will come when I have lived with them. Just before I left, we fell into a close argument on the self, which she considers capable of actual coalescing with other selves or with spirit. I came home holding my picture on my knees. It was so high that I could not see over it. Poor Mrs. Moore had had a bad head again today. Early to bed and dog-tired. All right, so that's how he ends that diary entry. It's an interesting theory that Aunt Lily has going here, that what we call a dead body doesn't necessarily have consciousness cease. So maybe, that makes me think of the stories sometimes used in literature as a horror story where everybody thinks that you're dead, but you're still alive. You just can't communicate to anyone. And so they're presuming that you're dead already and just going to, let's say you have yourself marked as an organ donor on the back of your ID. And you're still conscious, but all signs that the medical staff is able to take that they can detect signs of life in you are showing that you're dead, but your consciousness is still there. Anyway, that's a really long way of trying to explain that situation, and that's what Aunt Lily's little idea of here reminded me of. I don't know if that's what she means or not. That's where I'm going to have to end today, Robot Lady. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing before I do?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay, Robot Lady. I think that's a good place to end it today. Thank you, as always, for your help. Thanks for those of you that joined, to you and anyone else within the sound of my voice. Until next time when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together. Take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets, ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds, lady. as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Scrooge